Es llamado escuchen a sus espejos.
Ya, ya. ¿Ah? Hola, hola.
Hola.
Hear me? Well, can we start if you give me the okay? Yep, we're good? Alright, let's go. Well, first of all, to thank you for your presence in this space. From the coordination of the indigenous organizations of the Amazon Basin, we greet you and we invite you to share a moment of reflection. The COP is just beginning, and it is important that at this time we can put the rhythm and we can share our question of things that are taking place nowadays and things that we hope that will happen during this COP. The reason for this call from the leaders is specifically because of the reports that have been published both from the UNFCCC as well as the IFC in regards to the implementation, the impact, and the transformation that climate investment, both in regards to the climate change and biodiversity, what the recommendations of this report are, both from the IPBS as well as the Catalyst Committee in regards to the impact, is that if we do not implement carefully the response, because we could aggravate further the challenges that indigenous people and local communities are facing and compromise the collective commitment in regards to the impact of climate change. Understanding the values and systems of acknowledgement in the global systems in regards to working on climate change. If we do not treat them as peripheral, it could reduce the risk, it would increase the biodiversity, and it could also increase the knowledge that is situated in the territories. And then on the last report, this is a report given by the UN, on the last report that was given for the on the first report of transparency report, this was omitted, that indigenous peoples are fundamentals for the investment and the implementation of public policies against climate change. And for this, we have the voices of our leaders here by our side. And we start with the general coordinator of Coica, Fanny Cuiro Castro. Welcome, coordinator. Thank you, Zach. Well, good afternoon to you all. Thank you for being here today. Well, our call is quite clear for the states and the governments. They listen to their own experts. The United Nations, the UNFCCC, via their committee of experts, the Catalyst in 2024, and the recent assessments of the IPBS, has shown that deforestation, carbon markets, and projects of renewable energy, if they are designed without the participation of indigenous peoples, of the communities, and without safeguards, they force the displacement of indigenous peoples and local communities. They also damage the ecosystems that the world needs to protect. We demand that any climate financing that reaches our countries includes our traditional knowledge and explicit guarantees for our free, prior, and informed consent, our legal safety of the land tenure of the territories of indigenous peoples, and the mechanisms, the complaint mechanisms. It is not enough to strengthen capacities. It's not enough to just simply say that we're strengthening the capacities of indigenous people. It's important to include the indigenous peoples, and it is not enough to just be on paper. We need obligatory rules that are fulfilled in the territories. It concerns us that the first report of the transparency report of the UNFCCC of 2025 omitted this from its reports. This is unacceptable and a little bit irresponsible. We ask that the final text of COP30 does correct this and includes obligatory safeguards so that no climate action can make our rights more vulnerable. Millions of dollars are being given to reforestation, to carbon markets. We want the complete participation from the design and the implementation. Without our peoples, without our voices, without our knowledge, without the respect of our rights, we will not have long-lasting solutions. There will be no solutions to the climate crisis. The answer is us. Thank you, coordinator. And following this and visualizing all of these funds and the initiatives that will be launched during this COP30, the general coordinator of COIAB, a member of Coica, our coordinator Toya Machineri, will tell us precisely as to what is the expectation from Brazil in regards to the mechanisms that are being launched. Please go ahead. Thank you very much, Zach. We will start.
Em primeiro lugar, quero saudar o Fundo Florestas Tropicais para Sempre, o TFF, mais 20% não basta. 80% restante também impacta nossos territórios e precisa ser decidido com nossa participação e sabedoria ancestral. Por que 20%? Somente 20%. É só o começo. Um percentual mínimo não muda a forma de decidir nem de executar. Onde há gestão indígena, a conservação é mais efetiva. Sem nós, na governança, os erros se repetem cada vez mais, né? As lições de projetos mal implementados, sem consulta e participação indígena, projetos climáticos já causaram deslocamento, conflitos e perda de biodiversidade. Ou seja, toda vez que é feito um programa, um projeto, sem a consulta, sem a visão dos povos indígenas, somente com um olhar externo, sempre deu errado e sempre vai dar errado. Porque não considera os conhecimentos locais e os conhecimentos dos povos indígenas. A literatura científica sobre mudanças transformadoras alerta políticas que ignoram o conhecimento local. O que exigimos para o TFF? Governança com voz e voto dos povos indígenas nos conselhos e comitê do fundo. Consulta livre prévia informada e salvaguarda o direito em 100% dos investimentos. Ou seja, salvaguardar os direitos dos povos indígenas mesmo no investimento dos recursos. Queremos saber de onde que vem esses recursos, se são de empresas que realmente respeitam o direito dos povos indígenas e os direitos humanos. Meta da participação superior a 20%, ampliar o acesso e a gestão direta por parte dos povos indígenas e comunidades locais ao longo da implementação, respeitando a estrutura e mecanismo próprio de financiamento dos povos indígenas, como exemplo no Brasil, o Fundo Podali, que é um mecanismo dos povos indígenas da Amazônia brasileira para a captação de recursos e redistribuição nos territórios. Transparência, relatórios anuais sobre qual porcentagem de financiamento direto e de resultados em direitos de conservação por país e saber onde vem o fundo, onde serão investidos, por exemplo, não receber investimento de empresas que estão poluindo e impactando os territórios indígenas. Mecanismo independente de queixas e de reparação com prazo e responsáveis definidos. Porque 20% é insuficiente. Nos nossos territórios, contribui mais de 20% para a proteção da biodiversidade, sumidouros de carbono, barreiras contra o desmatamento, recebeu o equivalente à nossa contribuição. Isso atrasa a execução, ao contrário, evita conflitos, reduz custos e acelera resultados duradouros. O que muda com consulta livre prévia informada obrigatória? Toda medida administrativa ou legal.
All legal measures that has an impact for indigenous people needs to happen with the consent from us. Lessons from Brazil, what we call the devastation bill, has flexibilized the permits and has weakened the safeguards. Where indigenous voices have been excluded, in 2024, we had an alarming increase of the deforestation, more than 85.2% in a key quarter. This is what happens without safeguards and participation. The lesson for the TFFF is they did not incorporate in a complete manner indigenous peoples. They multiplied the risk and loss and the efficiency. The TFFF is not perfect, needs to respect our safeguards. But its structure does include a mechanism of direct funding for us indigenous peoples. We do not want funds that decide for us. We have our own mechanisms that have already demonstrated to be efficient, an answer to our self-determination. We are defending direct funding for indigenous peoples and local communities. And that's why the answer is us. Thank you. Thank you, coordinator. And precisely, it is this quantifying of what indigenous people's territory give us. That's what our leader, Cristiane Pancararu, will offer us right now. Thank you very much, Zach. Good morning, women and non-women. Thank you for your presence in this space. My name is Cristiane Julião. I am Pancararu. I come from the Caatinga biome because I come here to defend the Amazon, because the Amazon is important as all other different biomes. We're more than 300 peoples. But we also make up this ecosystem. These ecosystems flow different financial flows to the world. The countries need to take a positioning and finally accept and implement the resources that they have been negligent to be given. The developed countries have developed from the exploitation of our territories and our bodies. It's because of a lot of blood that they have spilled. That's why they are emergent, or they have emerged. Second, the World Resource Institute, only the protection of indigenous people's territories has given at the very least $1.16 trillion per year. These are direct resources, not even talking about indirect resources, the resources that are given by exploitation, mining, illegal mining, deforestation, the burning, the agribusiness. These are all different types of violence. All of this come and gather what causes and potentializes the climate emergency. Even because of climate change are natural phenomena. We deal with this every year. We're talking about summer, spring, each one of the seasons, but the indigenous movement has been warning the world for a long time. The Freeland Camp, Acampamento Terra Libra, years ago made a call in regards to the climate emergency. COIAB has made different types of work with different organizations, with partnership, especially with APIB, the coordination of Brazilian indigenous people, because we indigenous people, how do we have the solution? Because we are the solution. We need that the countries who are developed become humble, that they learn how to listen to us, because the environmental manipulation depends very much more so because of our spirits, the owners of these ecosystems, the forests. We're talking about different types of strengths that not even our human beings understand. And for those of you who do not believe the climate emergencies that have caused all of the tragedies, for us that live and know what it comes, these are the spirits that are mad because of the way that our resources have been used. So we need to return and believe that it is possible. We still have time. When the indigenous peoples movement echoes, says the answer is us, is because we have the answer. We are the answer. And indigenous territories prove this. The environmental conservation that takes place in the territories demonstrates that the carbon capture, the quality of life, of the water, of the food, comes from this care and this respect that exists there. So we need that this financing mechanisms understand that the direct financing for indigenous people is the qualitative guarantee of all living beings, human and non-human, indigenous and non-indigenous. The answer is us. That's right. Thank you very much. And now, given this certainty and this no doubt that the ancestral knowledge, the defense of our rights, and the safeguards are needed for any kind of investment in indigenous territories, for biodiversity, climate change, or environmental, we want to listen to David Kaimowitz, who has been an ally, who has been very, very near and dear to the indigenous movement. And now, from Tenure Facility, he accompanies these processes. Thank you, Zach. And thank you to all of my indigenous comrades from Coica and COIAB who have invited us here today as donors and financiers. A lot of times when we talk about climate investment in the Amazon basin, we forget that the 1/4 of this area that is bigger than all of Western Europe and a big part of Eastern Europe, that 1/4 of the Amazon basin, it's a property of indigenous people. And more than 1/3 of all the forests in the basin are the property and managed by the peoples. And given this, none kind of climate financing in the Amazon basin can be valid if it does not take into account both the knowledge as well as the rights of these peoples. For a long time, we debated that we did not need to finance indigenous people because if there was no deforestation in their forests, why would we give them financing if they already take care of their forests? We don't need to do it because they're already protecting this. But the reality, nonetheless, is that the attacks grow every day. The attacks from the agro-business, from the oil industry, from the drug dealers, from the speculators. And because of this, the peoples need this financing, and us and non-indigenous need to support them for the well-being not only of them, but of our whole planet. The financing has been increasing for indigenous peoples in the basin, but there's a lot of work to be done still. And there's still a lot to be needed so that there's a higher percentage can reach and be managed directly by indigenous organizations. And that the indigenous organizations can truly be the ones who control this discourse of all of the climate financing in the region that they concerns them. But we're not only here to talk about financing for these organizations and indigenous peoples. We're talking about the responsibility of the multilateral bodies, bilaterals, and philanthropy of not doing anything in terms of climate financing in the region that does not take into account the free, prior, informed consent of these peoples and does not incorporate their ancestral knowledge, to not do anything without this. This is not only a moral subject, this is a legal subject as well. The constitutions and the bills from the majority of Amazon countries demand the free, prior, informed consent. The norms and the international treaties demand the free, prior, informed consent. This means that when one body, one agency, one donor supports an oil activity, a highway, a hydroelectric, a lithium mine, or other minerals, without their consent, this body is acting not only in an amoral capacity, but also illegal. And here at COP30, everyone needs to be clear that needs to stop. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, David. And to conclude, I just want to emphasize that the central message that has echoed here is that the technical data on our speakers lead us to an important truth. Indigenous people and local communities are fundamental to reach the climate change and biodiversity goals. We will not be able to limit global warming and stop the loss of biodiversity without their knowledge and leadership. We have listened and called for to obligatory safeguards for just and fair financing and to the understanding of the immeasurable contribution of indigenous territory. We need the collaboration of civil society, of governments. Stop speaking and start acting in the name of the organizations of the Amazon Basin. Let's remember that in regards to the climate change and biodiversity struggle, the answer is us. Thank you. If there are any questions in the room for any of the participants, the floor is yours. Good afternoon, Isabel Seta from the Public Agency. A question for Toya. The President Lula has made a reference in some of the declarations as to how Brazil is defending, so that COP30 recognizes the right of protection of indigenous people's territory as a mitigation measure. How have you received these declarations, and in which decision from COP30 do you expect it to appear? The declarations from the President Lula is quite positive. We've been working on this for a year in this proposal. And what we wanted to see in the final document of COP30 included the demarcation and the titling of indigenous peoples' territory as a climate policy. So these words that President Lula brings forward for us is very important, because a country who is the biggest proprietor of the Brazilian Amazon, for us is very important, because we are going to try to influence other countries so that this can truly be considered in the final document from COP. Because we know that everything that's decided in the document needs to be done in collaboration. So if one country does not want it, this will not take place. So for us, this is very important that President Lula is already working on this. We've been working on this for a year. The Ministry of Indigenous People, the Foreign Affairs Ministry, And alongside the president of the 9 states of the Brazilian Amazon, alongside our organization Coica, we have been working on this, and our partners as well. So for us, this is a small victory, but it's an important victory if this is given further visibility by President Lula. And we hope that all of our partners can bring this message to the representative of other countries so that we can conclude and have it cited in the final document from COP30. Thank you very much. We have 2 more minutes, I believe. We have one more question. Hello, my name is Sofia Wallenberg. I am a journalist from the Swiss journal Volksreise, because we have the president of indigenous people from all of Latin America and all of COP. How have you organized amongst yourselves to have a common agenda to bring it to this conference, and what expectations do you have at the end of the COP? Are we going to have a hopeful result, or do you believe that it would be another COP without any kind of concrete results? Fanny or Cristiani, whoever wants to speak. I don't know if I understood your Spanish, but our expectation is that we 100%. If this does not take place, if what we're asking for is this does not appear in the final document, we're going to be working for COP31 and COP32, because the defense of our rights is continuous. So we're already having meetings with the representatives from Australia. We're saying that COP31 is going to take place there, and we've also have meeting with the representatives from the Pacific, because COP32 will take place there. This means that we're already working on so that the countries recognize this reparation that is not being asked only from Brazil, it's from the 7 continents, because the demarcation of our territories is an issue for all of us. All right, we conclude with this press conference. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.